This is you guys' brand new Hog 4 Road Hog Road Hog lighting console. It's similar to your previous console, other than it's newer software, a lot more reliable, and a lot more functional. You can use the iPad app, as you guys have been looking at. So, just to start with, the first thing is knowing how to shut it down. To shut down, you hit setup, quit, and then you press shut down. You'll see it go into this screen here. When this screen goes out, you'll want to reach behind the console to the power switch. If you forget to do the power switch, when you go and try and turn it on, it will not come on because you'll flip the switch to turn it on and nothing will happen because you're flipping it to the off position. So to start the console, just go ahead and flip the power switch on.
No way.
And
It's already loaded.
as you see, it boots a lot quicker than the old one.
Yeah.
And then just launch existing shell.
We're not gonna have time to go make coffee.
Matt's been having to get here like 3:30 in the morning on Sundays.
So now your show file's up and running. So then I went ahead and hit view 6, which is this current view right now. That brings up all your groups here, position directory, and then up on the little monitor, you have your entire queue list. So this screen will follow whichever queue designation you call out for. So as you had before, you had your queue chooser up top for each queue list. Right now, this is your Sunday master queue, the one you guys normally will probably use every Sunday. So once you choose the queue list you want, go ahead and hit play, and it'll actually start that queue list. So now, none of that has changed from your old console. Everything's still the same. Play moves you to your next queue, and pause will actually back you up to your previous queue. So those are still the same. Like I said, there's the biggest difference is it's a lot more stable hardware.
When you hit pause, you
Yes.
backed up to the previous, but it did it with a transition
Yes.
as opposed to a hard restart
So
to the left.
when you use the pause button, it goes through the fade change. So it uses the same fade time that it has going forward as it did backwards. So if you hit play, it has that 6-second cue fade time, and then if you hit pause, it uses that same 6 seconds to revert back to the previous one. So it's not a hard cut on each one. So it uses your fade times all the way through. Same thing with if you use the go-to key, it uses your fade times also. So you can jump.
It's also tied into it now, right?
I'm sorry.
The house lighting is now tied into it.
Yeah, it's recordable. Yeah, in the
Like when you first started out, the house lights changed.
Right.
Normally, we manually have changed it before you start.
And we
well,
turn it
so
off.
no, that works the same. So sorry to
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
not
sorry.
to
Yeah,
take
yeah.
over your, but so we'll still have to turn the house lights off on the panel on the wall so that the lighting console can have control over dimming capabilities and stuff. If you leave it on, and they've been reprogrammed, but but everything is still the same. The top one is on, the bottom one is off. And so you'll want that turned off so that because if you do notice you're popping through queues and the house lighting's not changing, it's supposed to be, likely it's on and it's overriding the console. Yep. So same procedure there.
Yep.
Yep.
So the only thing that's changed is your particular console. All the operations of your lights and everything from the past is still the same. So your same procedures for when you come in to start up your console, you still got to go through those same procedures. So now, as before, you had the ability to record cues, and we'll go into just a quick tutorial on how to do a cue list. So as you see, I chose cue list 3. I'll go ahead and release that one. So as you see, we start out with a blank slate. So let's go ahead and add in house lights, record. So as you saw, what I did was I picked what fixtures I wanted, then I went to give them an intensity. So the nice thing is once you have your fixture selected, you can do full, which will put them all the way to 100%, or you can choose a intensity, so like 50%. So grab these again, at 50, enter. So you got to tell it what you want, then tell it at, and then the intensity, enter. Biggest thing, always make sure you have your faders up. Otherwise, no matter what you do on that cue list, nothing will happen. So now, since we've got this first one going, we'll go ahead and add on to it. So we'll call this our walk-in cue. So I'll come up here. And call it walk-in. Now you can either use the on-screen keyboard, as you see I'm using, or you can use your physical keyboard to do it. The physical keyboard is always easier, but sometimes it's just out of reach and the mouse click is easier. So called that walk-in. So I'm looking at it going, okay, let's add a few more things to it. So we'll add the legends at full. Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm backwards. So go ahead and do those, and instead of me just saving each time I add something, I'll build it and then save it all at once. So let's grab LED tape, at full, let's give it okay, and I'll just go ahead and record this. So now, since I already have a cue recorded, I have to go record cue 1, enter. Now it asks me, do I want to insert, merge, replace, or cancel? Typically what I always do is merge. So what that does is it takes what you already have and what you're adding and puts them together. Now if you do replace, of course what it does is it wipes everything else out and brings it back to whatever you just put in. So now, this is your current walk-in look. We'll go ahead and add in your we'll add in some stage wash. And let's see here, what else can we add? And then we'll just go ahead and record. And it automatically, when you hit record, it'll always assume you want to record a new cue. So if you're going through and you just hit record enter, it automatically records a new cue. So right now we're looking at the first cue I built. And if you go ahead and hit play, it'll go on to your second cue. That's just kind of basic programming. The nice thing is everything you had in your previous cue gets held over to the next cue. So it's called tracking. So it tracks through each cue until you change those parameters. So if it's nice to build or subtract from things. So it always has the previous ones, and if you use the tracking, it actually keeps your show file a lot cleaner. So it's not having to keep trying and send the same signal. It goes, oh, I haven't been told to do anything with that, so it holds from previous cues. So now, if you wanted to actually go down to what we had the first time, what you can do is do Q, Q1, copy 2, Q3, enter. So now what that did is it took everything that was in the first queue and moved it to Q3. And since I haven't changed any of those parameters in between the two, it took everything that was not added in Q2 and put it in Q3. So then you've got to go back and take out the things you didn't want. So we'll just bring down the stage wash and then hit update, and it asks you, do you want to update that cue? And you want to hit OK. So now instead of me recording, it goes, okay, I'm going to knock whatever out instead of adding more information. It just takes what it knows is there and holds it and pulls everything else back out that you don't want. So update also keeps you a very clean show file versus it having to keep trying to send the same information repetitively. It just keeps using the track and it'll keep it going through. And then, so that's a basic cue list. Try and think of anything else that, as a basic operator, you guys need. You guys have any questions yet?
Well, I know there's a feature on there, and I didn't really know how to use it on the first one. I don't know if it still falls under basic or not, but there's this, is it called spotlight or highlight?
Highlight. So highlight is good for when you're going through and you're programming. So if you turn on highlight, anything that you select will come up at 100%. So it's good for finding what that fixture is. So if you have no clue the console and you want to figure out what a fixture is, you go ahead and hit highlight, and whatever that fixture is will come full on. So there's
no practical use to use it during an actual show?
no, there's really not. the highlight is really only good for when you're programming and you need to find a fixture, or if you're going through and let's just do 201. So what you can do is you can do a highlight, and that wasn't a good one. So right now I have highlighted the stage wash. But what you can do is you can use your next and back and go through those particular fixtures. So let's say you have a drum solo. You can find what fixture is directly on the drum solo and record it. The big thing to remember is highlight is not a recordable parameter. So highlight is not doing anything in the programmer. So if I was to record right now and then try and play back, that fixture would not come on. It'll go to any parameter I give it, but it will not turn on. But what you can do is you can bounce through your fixtures and figure out what fixtures pointed where and be able to use that for certain scenes. So that's basically what highlight is good for. For a general service, it's not a necessary thing unless you're trying to get crazy and flash lights in the middle of service.
Alan does that a lot. We gotta keep him.
Brendan, your next solo up there is on. The whole house is going dark.
So the button right next to it is blind. I don't recommend using it.
Doesn't sound good.
The reason I say that is if you have blind on, whatever you do in the programmer will not move until you turn blind off. Okay? So blind is only good for if you've been an operator for a long period of time and you know everything your fixture can do and you want to build something sporadically on the fly and bring it in. So, like I said, blind is one of those things that I've even been in the middle of a program going, why is this not working? And it's because blind's on. So, blind is a no-go.
Is there a way to transition out of blind if you have to do that? Say you forget to bring up part of the wash or something and you want to...
The best way for that is you've just got an intensity. Use the intensity wheel and just fade it in manually. There's no good way to come in and out of blind. It is a hard cut to come in and out.
Okay.
It uses no fade time at all. So right now you've got a pretty easy setup right now on your screens, and they can be changed in any configuration you want. Like for this one, we can actually resize it down, move it anywhere on this screen, and then you can actually move it to a whole nother screen. So right now I put it on the little screen. If I hit move, it comes back. So you can put any screen that's on the main 27-inch up on any other screens connected to the system. And no matter what you do, wherever you move these to, your views are automatically saved in. So if you get your screens all messed up, you hit whatever view you want, and it'll take it back to that original main screen.
And Patrick, were you saying you can set preset those views the way that you want them?
Correct.
Okay.
So let's just have some fun. Let's add color, resize it. Let's add in the beam directory, let's resize it. go back to groups.
Starting ride.
I don't want to start the ride. So positions. So I've got the colors open, all your groups, all your positions, all your beams. Have them all open. So now what I can do is do record, view, and we'll just do view 7. So now if I come over here to palette, it changes the screen to this particular view. If I come over to view 6, this one, and then the one I just built. So you've got over 100 views you can do that actually come up at the top of your screen. You can cycle through them by just clicking the next button. If you double tap view, it brings up all of the views that have been created. You can name these just like you name anything else by hitting set. So that one we'll call main. So now it's there. And then at the top of your screen, now instead of it saying view 6, it says main. So you can go to blank, which is programmed with nothing on it, and then come over to main, and then you're back to that main screen. And it can be set up however you want. You can add a total of 2 more displays to this, so it gives you versatility. You can add in extra touch screens, so those 2 additional screens can both be touch screens. So you can have a fully touchscreen console. So
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, if you know, like say, I've got a view that I like. I can name that Brendan, you know, or Abe can name his, or Kelsey can name hers, or so on and so
Yep.
forth. And yeah, that's cool. You kind of decide how you like the thing to be laid out, you know. There's something
and that's
that
the real
works
nice
well
thing
for
about
you.
it is everybody can have their own view. The other thing is everybody can have their own page if you wanted to. So if, let's do another page. So I can do a whole nother page of lists. Come on. So each person can have their own page list, which is their faders. And once they're set up, you can actually, let's go, this list, let's go, you, move to, and about a minute. So everybody can have their own pages.
Hey, Ricky, there's a chair up there if you want.
How is a page different than view?
So a page is just your bottom, is your actual faders. Your faders are on your pages, your views are what's on the screens.
So a page is basically like a queue list, right? Is that the same, or is that different? Are those interchangeable?
A queue list is, they're not interchangeable.
Okay,
So as you see now I have a brand new page set up.
gotcha.
So
Okay.
now if I do you, all that, list 30, move to 2. So you can add whatever you want.
Okay,
onto your own page.
Okay.
So let's say, Kelsey, you have your cue list that you built and you don't want someone to touch it, you can put it on a different page. So then,
And you guys have had like drama plays and things like that.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's true.
nice to have that completely separate information.
So then everybody can have. So I actually deleted that first page, which is fine because now I can come in and move things back in. Now, if you saw, I actually record over the Grand Master. So what that does is instead of you losing a fader to your Grand Master now becomes a push button on the side. But you have this fader here, which is now a usable fader. So instead of being down to 9 faders, you have all 10 faders with the Grand Master. And anytime you delete a cue, it will actually close it out. So we'll move Sunday. And if you've got, let's say you've got a bunch of cue lists open, if you do flying pig or the hog key and release, it releases everything in, it releases all of the faders. Now the reason your house lights you saw did not go out is I have that set up as a cue that does not get affected by anything else. So if for some reason you're going through and the button station's off and you're still not having your house lights adjust, you probably have your house light fader up. So it's one of those things that, for me, I've always had a house light fader on my console so that I can, if for some reason, middle of service, you're at 50% and you need full bright, you don't have to think about it. You can always bring your house lights all the way up. Nobody has to go to a button station. You have it right here. You have the control already, so use it at your console. Then you can also, since it's set up highest priority, as you see, it takes over everything else. But once you have your house lights set into your cue list, you turn this all the way off, and the next highest priority takes precedent. So it's nice to be able to, what I do is, before I shut down the console, I bring my house lights up to full. Then I can shut the console down. Then when I come in, I can turn my console on, go to the button station, shut it off, and your house lights stay at full. So it's nice that your console will take control as soon as you shut the button station off.
But the button station,
Still has higher priority.
whenever the console's off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even when the console's on, the button station has higher priority.
Okay.
That's why if someone leans against your button station in the middle of service, your house lights go to full.
We've never experienced that ever.
Everybody's.
We don't experience that at least once a month.
So, yeah, it's.
So if I bump this, oops, it's Christmas Eve and I just bumped
Yeah.
into the light
Yeah.
switch.
So, you guys have any other questions?
I do have a question.
Okay.
I noticed, so, I think it was the two legends on the outside in the Sunday queue were not, it's like the lamp wasn't on, like they're on. And before, when I've noticed that, I have, reset them, like from the console. Can you talk through that a little bit?
So like right now, the outside ones are off.
Yes.
So, like in this scenario, you have your outside two are off. Now, what you do is you go up to control, and you have the options of fixture idle, fixture global reset, lamp strike, lamp douse. Lamp strike and lamp douse are meant for incandescent fixtures of mainly moving head fixtures. So what it does is it either shuts the lamp off and gives it time to cool off before it's powered off, or turns it on. So if you're not having an output, most likely you're not lamp struck. So if that doesn't work, you can do what's called a global fixture reset. You press it. I wait about 10 seconds or so and hit clear. What that does is it makes the fixture go through a full reset cycle. Basically does a power cycling of it, rehomes it, checks all of its parameters, and then brings it back in. And depending on the fixture, like right now, the reason they didn't snap right back on is because as soon as you hit clear, it clears it out of the programmer. So it has no parameters going to it, so it's going, okay, I'm just gonna home myself and then be fine. So we'll grab it again and see the outside two are still off. So try douse. Douse them real quick. Give them a quick strike. So now, still for some reason, your outside two
Yeah.
are not on.
Another issue, but that's how you do that.
Yeah. And another nice thing is, let's say you're in the middle of a show, and we'll find a different one. This one's terrible. This list. Let's go Sunday, move here. So if you're in the middle of a show, or you're programming a show, and you don't want to start messing with the dials, what you can do is you can grab the fixtures that you're looking for. So we'll grab the LED tape, and you can do what's called suck. So there's a button at the bottom of your screen that's called suck. When you push it, it pulls all the parameters from all those fixtures in. So now you can physically see what your intensities are and all that. The nice thing about that is, let's say you want to grab your fixtures, and we'll do frames. We'll do the frames, and you can do suck. Now it pulls those in, and as I go through, it holds whatever parameters I told, because now they're in the programmer. And what you can do is, like I did before when I was copying cues, I can go back find a parameter I want. Let's say I have a fixture in the position I want for 5 cues later. I can go to that cue, grab that fixture, suck it, go into the cue that I want it to be in, and then record it. So it's nice to be able to, if you have looks that you want to hold, but you don't want to keep trying to reprogram them, you can do what's called sucking and grab that fixture, suck it into the programmer, and then reuse that particular parameter somewhere else.
So,
Does that hold through every parameter that you click through, or can you select does that hold through every cue that you click through, or can you?
So what you can, it will hold until you tell it to record.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So it doesn't record every time you go through a cue.
Okay. got
It doesn't do anything until you tell it to do something.
And it just records that aspect of it to the cue.
That fixture.
Yeah. Okay.
So the nice thing is if you're doing a position change, so you set the position in a cue and you want that position to be there on the previous cue, what you can do is you can suck that position, back up one cue, and then insert it with a 0 intensity. Now what it does is it holds the full intensity on the next cue, but on the previous cue, it puts it in position so that when you come into the cue, you don't have the movement. It just snaps into that position because it's already there from the previous cue.
Okay.
So it's really nice to be able to, if you don't want transitioning movements,
Relocate.
you pre-locate your fixtures where you want them in a dark scene. So basically your previous scene becomes a setup scene, but it's actually still doing something for something else.
Yeah.
So like in your worship look, and then you go into a message, and then you want those fixtures to be in another position in the next cue, you can set them up in the message queue that they move to where you want them, and then when you go to your next cue, you automatically are in the position you want, and you don't have that awkward movement into a position.
Yeah.
can you do that
Just
with?
picturing some amazing things.
Can you do that with so that would work with color too, right? Like not just position, or is it only position?
Yes, you can do it with a color, as long as you set if it's one of those colors that have an intensity parameter. So if it's a
Like red, green, blue, amber, like each is its own
so
intensity, or
if you have a master intensity,
okay. got it.
so if
So that
you
would be like the max.
Yes.
It would be like the stage bars.
yeah anything that you have a master intensity,
Okay.
you can set your color,
Okay.
and then when you bring up the intensity, it's the color you want, and it doesn't fade through all the colors.
Gotcha.
So it's really nice for your Macs that have the flags in it. You don't see it go through all the flags to get to a color.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Could you do like another example of that?
of
You
which
could
one?
You could do that on the legends.
Yeah.
Because they've got the color
Mm-hmm.
flags on them.
Yeah, yeah. So our legends. Yeah. Could you do like a color change maybe or something? I don't know. I say that as too. Oh, the.
Yeah. So then we'll do So you see how that flicks through?
Mm-hmm.
So what you can do is, we'll take this,
Hey, can you do that again? Sorry. Just so we have the example of what it's doing. Sorry.
you're right.
Okay, go for it.
So we've got these two legends that they're currently in a white color. So if you go to the next queue, which has a different color in it, it flicks through all of the color flags. Now what you can do is come in and grab your legends and do suck, and then change the intensity to 0. And then record Q 1.5, enter, clear. So then, since I didn't have an intensity, you see how they went out. So now I gotta go back to Q2 and bring in an intensity, because it's tracking. So the last intensity was the Q before. So it's holding that intensity. So we'll update. Clear. So we got this color. Goes out and changes colors, and then comes in with the color you want.
Oh, cool.
Now the nice thing is, it's doing that in the fade times. You can adjust that fade time so they fade out, and in that queue you can have it be a 1 second fade time, and it'll click through all the color wheels to get to the color you want, and then you can set a follow so that it's actually taking your queue, and if I go to 1, so I start with this color, I tell it to go, fades out, and then it automatically fades back up into the color I want
Okay.
by using a follow queue. So the nice thing is that saves you from having that extra key press in there. You can use
Yeah.
a follow queue, or you can use a halt or a wait.
Okay.
So halt is stops, it waits for the next key press. A wait, you give it a time frame. So I could tell it to wait 2 seconds, it'll go into that next queue, wait 2 seconds, and then go to the next queue. So the nice thing is with a follow, you can have it do a transition in the dark, but it not seem like it's a dark transition, because you can have it do it real quick when it going through its own cycle. So it can get to a new position quickly, and you're not having to press the keys.
Cool.
So when you programmed the queue for follow, what did you press to get?
So you want to focus on the little queue list screen?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So to set up a follow queue, you come to your queue list screen and you double tap inside the wait. So it says wait up top, and it gives you your choices of halt, wait, follow, time code, manual. The main ones you'll use are your halt, wait, and follow. So to do a follow, you just press follow, enter, and it puts it in there. So once I go into that queue, the previous queue, it automatically grabs and follows into the next. That follow time can be adjusted with your fade times, or you can go ahead and do a wait, and it automatically gives you the option of how many seconds. So we'll do 5 seconds, enter. 2, 1. So if you see, it's automatically timing itself. So as soon as that last cue hits, it goes ahead and starts that wait timer. And it automatically flows into the next one. So it's good for knowing your time transitions. If you know how much time you have in between, you can put those in and keep from having to click through. And halt, of course, is just your normal state that they're in. So it automatically waits for a cue to go. So that's pretty much a basic rundown. You guys have any more questions?
Yeah, any questions?
If there's a,
Tied into or a display, or what it would look like tied into an iPad?
Do what? What's your question?
Well.
So
can we
tied
link-
in,
Can we link it into the iPad, so like whatever he's doing, will it show up here, what would this look like?
I think that's just a control surface.
yeah, it's just another control
So
surface.
it's gonna look pretty similar
Yeah.
to the.
Okay, well,
So
that's the same.
if you click through those tabs at the bottom, you'll see what it'll look like.
Oh, okay.
And it just kind of, it's the same thing you look at the desk, just in an iPad version. The other way to look at it is you're looking at Hog for PC. So if you didn't have this console, you could get Hog for PC, and that's what it would look like.
What's the name of the app, Patrick?
Hog 4 remote.
Hog 4, number 4?
Number 4 remote.
Okay, Hog number 4 remote. Very good. iOS and
Just iOS.
Just iOS, okay.
Patrick, we had talked about earlier, a couple things we talked about, the control surface on here. So like the play button and pause button, where that used to be towards the middle of our other console, it's all the way to the left on this one. So that's a little bit of a change. But like he was talking about, pretty much all the keystrokes
Keystrokes
and
are all the
syntax,
same.
everything is the same. Some buttons are just in newer locations. One of the other things that's different is the other one. Remember how we had that blue trackball that would move the moving lights? That's not on this one.
Yeah.
So you have to use the, you would click the position button and then on the
Use your encoder wheels.
Yeah, the encoder wheels. You would see on the screen, pan, tilt, and that's how you would move your moving headlights.
And pan and tilt does show up in your intensity also.
Oh, cool. I didn't know
So
that.
you don't have to go to your position. You can stay in intensity, and your pan and tilt is still there. So
And the other thing that we talked about is the like parking the power and everything still the same.
Yep.
So when you guys come in, the old console, you'd flip the thing and there was the
Yep.
green button. So this one, to power it on, you just flip the switch on the back.
yes.
Right, and then it'll display whatever show you want to load. FBMWorship, I think, is what it's called. Load show. It'll kick everything on, and then when we go to power everything down, douse the legends again to let them cool. I'm sorry. Release everything. Release everything. Release all the positions. Douse the legends, and then select the 3 power items. Yep. And then at 0, enter, and then
It's
park.
parked.
And then the only other thing that's different about
And you
that-
can actually, instead of doing at 0,
Mhm.
if you just do Hog Park,
Mhm.
which is your unpark command, and clear, it automatically clears it out.
Oh, cool.
So you don't have to tell it an intensity. As soon as you hit clear, it
okay.
knows that it's at zero.
So you'd
'Cause
select them, hog, and
Yes.
then unpark. And
So you can, when you select your powers to turn them on at full, that brings them to full intensity. And then go ahead and hit park. And that parks them on. To shut it off, go ahead and do your 3 powers. The hog key, the flying pig,
Is that loading the baptistry now?
park. So with the flying pig or the hog key and park, that automatically tells it unpark. And then you hit clear, and that shuts everything back off without telling an intensity.
And then you would do the
And then
system
To
right.
shut down, you do setup, quit, shut down.
switch, right? You said.
And then
after-
once it goes completely black, just go ahead and reach behind the console. On the left-hand side, you'll feel the power cable, and the switch is right above the power cable, and go ahead and power it off. What that does is it actually kills all the power to the console itself. So if you have any power issues in the area, any power surges or anything, it stops at the power source or at the power supply versus hitting the power supply and everything down line.
Okay.
So then, of course, to turn it back on, just reach behind the console, flip the power switch back on, and then it'll boot up. And there's no time for coffee anymore.
That's right. That's right.
Better have your coffee before service.
Come fuel. Yeah, those are the same, yeah.
Is that sheet of paper still gonna be in the binder next to the whiteboard?
Yeah, yeah, that'll still be there, but yeah, still the parking and unparking with the intensity on the hazer. Same thing, same principle as the power grid too.
The only difference about parking on this one that I've noticed so far is the old console on the screen, you'd have to hit more and then you'd hit park. This one, you can just hit park. Park is already
Oh, cool.
available.
That's nice.
So
Yes.
it's one less thing that you have to hit.
So park is a parameter pre-set up on the strip down here. It's located right here.
Yeah, there's some unmarked buttons in there. Are those?
These here?
user-defined?
These buttons here.
Yes, and then also on the console. I'm
Yes,
guessing match
so
the-
they match, they are your function buttons. You can set up views on them, you can set up kinds on them, you can set whatever you want on them. If you would like, you can actually set it up that one of these is actually your hazer. So you push that button, turns your hazer on,
Oh, come on.
push that button, it shuts it back off.
Yes.
So it allows you that whole thing. The other option for your hazer would be to set it up as a queue. Then you can tell it that at 100%, it's actually only outputting 20%. So you can have your fader all the way up and press play, and it'll turn your hazer to full or 20%, whichever way you want it. And then you can set up a second queue that it's actually off in there.
So you set that up almost like you did the house ride, the house
Yes.
lights. On the
Yeah.
second page.
So-
Okay.
The other way you can do it is put this as a hold key. So when you push it, it actually turns it on. You push it again, it shuts it off.
Okay.
So, and it doesn't matter where your fader is on the strip. This button overrides the fader.
Yeah.
So on a lot of them, it becomes a flash cue with this. So you can literally sit there and flash lights if you wanted to, if you set it that way.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah,
For
I
every-
think you looked right at me
Yeah.
for that one.
Yes, for every comment
Yeah.
card we get,
Like
we
that.
get a light flash.
The Holy Ghost party.
That's right. And cut.
We should just secretly program one of the unmarked buttons to be the confetti cannons.
There you go.
Glory cloud.
Lord, yes.
on top of this console, you still have your desk lamp,
Awesome.
which is, you've got your intensity on the board for it, to turn on and off, or any intensity in between. Your backlights, which are your buttons on top. You have your intensity on there. And then you also have a work light
Oh, that's cool.
under your console now. So if you had a piece of paper here, you wouldn't have to have your lights on in the room. You can see a piece of paper sitting here.
Nice.
And to get a little more fancy, you can go into Preferences, Appearance, Apply,
I'm hoping.
and now you have a blue light.
Whoa.
So your desk lamp can be blue also.
Can you make it pink?
Working on it.
Okay.
Throw it gel.
Yeah, you can put a gel on it. I've seen it before. So you still have a work lamp. You have your work lights down here. So
Very nice. You guys have any other questions? All right. Thank you, Patrick.
you're welcome.
Thank you, yeah, thank you so much.
If you guys want, feel free to come up. I'll pull the camera equipment out of the way here. Feel free to come up and play around if you want to,
Yeah.
or ask Patrick any questions, but we'll go ahead and shut video down here. All good.